let him do that. Gerald Pallor.
First of all, just want to take a moment to thank the sponsors, or Think Duchess and the Google Developers Group, the Workforce Development Institute, DocuWare, New York chapter of the Internet Society, and the Drone Cadets. So thank you to all the people, all the businesses that have given us your generous support. Also want to thank the town crier for hosting this event live. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and doing live events is still a little bit dicey, but nonetheless, we have a nice turnout today, and I'm glad to see everybody here. So thank you for coming. Thanks to Phil Saganer. Thanks to Greg, who really have gone out of their way to make us feel at home and make this whole thing work. It's my pleasure to host or moderate a panel of rock stars. I've been an advocate for various types of access and training in the media. I've done a lot of teaching. I'm trying to help build a more robust and inclusive communications environment. This is since I started in the business more years ago than I care to admit. I remember I was teaching at SUNY New Paltz back in the 70s, and cable television had just achieved 35% penetration of American households. And everybody was saying that's a tipping point. Once cable achieved 35%, it would be proved viable. And I was basing my courses, which were pretty much hands-on production courses, on channeling my students to look at cable as a way of the future. I was terminated after 5 semesters because they thought I was crazy. One of the, at the meeting where I presented my students' work, which led directly to my not being rehired, the department chair said, and this is a quote, "You don't really think they're going to rewire the whole country, do you?" So now we're into wirelessly rewiring the whole country, about 4 different generations of technology. The people that are on the stage with me today are really at the cutting edge of taking this whole communications brave new world and bringing it down to the grassroots, bringing it down to a level that reaches out to people. We talk about digital inclusion and the digital divide. The digital divide basically means people who don't understand how to use technology, don't know how the equipment works, have no access to the internet because they don't have a viable connection. So the people on the stage, and I'll introduce them one by one, and then I'll let them speak for themselves. We have Meg Käufer, who is an educator and the founder and president of the STEM Alliance. And for those of you who don't know what STEM means, shame on you. Meg, okay, it's science and technology and engineering and math. I like to say STEAM and throw the arts in there, but that's just because I have an arts background. Meg is champion STEM learning, focusing on the K-12 group. Am I correct about that? You want to talk a little bit about what we'll do is we'll have each of the panelists, after I introduce them, talk a little bit about their work, and then we'll take questions.
So I am Meg Käufer, and our nonprofit, the STEM Alliance, does focus on science, technology, engineering, and math education. And we work in the enrichment sector. At the start of the pandemic, we expanded an initiative called the Digital Equity Now, where we're providing a device, a hotspot connectivity, and 15 hours of tech education to any low-income resident in Westchester County. I do not want to, my goal is not to be original. My goal is to do great things. Our program is almost completely modeled after a group called Tech Goes Home in Boston. I thank them for their advising. Our work has exploded, and we've also expanded into another initiative where we received funds from US Ignite. There's a national grant working with several other partners, the City of Yonkers, Westchester County Association, Fordham University, Yonkers Partners in Education, and the STEM Alliance, And we just erected 2 CBRS towers in the city of Yonkers. City of Yonkers is the 3rd largest city in the state of New York. A lot of people don't know that. Those towers are going to be providing an alternative internet source, community-based internet source for residents in the city of Yonkers in a particular catchment in the range that those towers can reach. And effectively, what we're looking at there is, you know, if you look at our work around digital equity, the device needs to be one-to-one, and the education, certainly we can do those in cohorts. Typically a cohort for us is 15 people that we're teaching at the same time. But if we could replace that hotspot with a tower that serves several hundred people, you know, that would be awesome. But ultimately our work that we believe in most deeply are these wraparound solutions. That digital equity is critical for workforce development. A lot of people talk about workforce reskilling. We're a huge fan of those programs, but for decades we've been avoiding the digital divide. The digital divide has to be resolved through digital equity. Then you can move to digital fluency. From digital fluency, you can move to workforce reskilling. And then from workforce reskilling, we can create more denizens. So that's our work in a nutshell.
Thank you. I noticed that we have the 4th chair here who is with us online. Yeah, there's Angela up there in the corner. Do you want to bring her up? Angela Siefer is the Executive Director of the NDIA, which is the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. She's been with them since 2015. She was a founder of that organization. She's helped set up computer labs in underserved areas, managed broadband conferences, conducted research, managed digital inclusion programs. She's done it all. This woman has covered all the bases, and if you can bring her up, we can hear from her directly. And we just unmute herself and get her up on screen. Technology is great when it works.
Also, please, if you can, please pin her so we can see the larger picture. Thanks.
Sorry to throw a curveball at you guys. But you know, baseball season's winding down.
One of my greatest
Oh,
mentors.
that's a great picture. Move on and come back to her.
Angela spoke posted something about her. Okay, Angela can jump. Can you jump in and come out and in again?
We'll move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Please,
While we work out the technical bugs, I'd like to introduce Mary Lou Carolan. I have been spending a lot of time online and on the phone with Mary Lou. She has a very big project going with the Newburgh Free Library, and I will let her tell you about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here in a company of greatness. Very exciting. We are, you know, often in a position where people say, "Why is the library here?" And I love that. So I'll tell you why. We are committed to becoming that place that addresses those issues of the digital divide. It is our job to work with our community on digital literacy and work our way up to digital equity. We have been doing that in a number of different ways. The Newburgh Free Library is part of a consortium of 47 libraries in 4 different counties. And one of the things that is so near and dear to my heart is trying to drive all of these libraries into the same place, because we are part of the infrastructure of virtually every town and city in the country. Interesting fact, there are more public libraries than there are Starbucks, so we have a little bit of leverage. And And we are really committed to serving our community. One of the ways that we have made this pivot so dramatically was this past year. You know, we are so often associated not only with print, but with the physical place. And when both of those were taken away from us last year with the pandemic, we really had to make that change very quickly to how do we continue to serve our community under these circumstances. We don't have that place to go to. So our digital library just blossomed, and for all of the libraries, essentially, we started story hour at dining room tables. We started to teach people how to cook and how to craft and learn different languages and take technology classes via Zoom. So we made that transition very quickly. But we realized that one of the things that we still were not able to provide was the access to the technology for our community. Many people have phones, but not a whole lot of folks in our general area, have access to a decent working laptop or tablet. And first and foremost, they don't have great access to the internet. Newburgh is notorious for having internet service. So when all of the schools and all of the children went online and everybody got a Chromebook, that was great. But if you were on a block that didn't have great consistent internet access, that digital inequity was still there. The kids were still suffering, and their families as well. We realized that there was a huge language barrier once the Chromebooks were handed to all of the children. The parents didn't understand how these things worked. And then, so everybody was thrust into a different role last year and continuing into this year. And the library has been helping our community navigate through that. Not only did we as staff people learn way more digital skills than we had ever thought we would need, but now we're excelling at that, and we're raising that bar. We are listening to people and trying to address their needs. What is it that will help you to get to that next place? So part of that is what we're doing today, forging these great connections with Open Hub, which has been teaching technological skills to our community for the last 5 years. But now we're launching a new relationship where we are working to create a workforce development program that will include IT certificates for the folks that go through our classes. Where we've just applied for and received a New York State construction aid a grant of several $100,000 that's going to enable us to open a new tech hub, and that will provide state-of-the-art technology for our community to come in and learn on the devices that they will actually be using in the workforce or from home or whatever job they decide to pursue. So our job at the library is to level that playing field, that the folks that walk into this place, it doesn't matter your income status, your educational status, it's all there. And so that's the effort that we are putting forth, and really working hard to really expand that through the help of Open Hub and different grant opportunities. So we continue to do that and to respond to immediate needs. Just a very quick story. We had an interesting thing happen during the pandemic where over that period of time, our windows were replaced in our library, and all of a sudden we realized we had these nice new libraries as part of this big federal grant that the school district had received. But now our patrons are telling us we can't access the internet anymore. So now we not only don't have the building open because of the pandemic, but the folks that used to rely on reliable internet service through the library for free could not be outside on our plaza and utilize our internet. So we had to really scramble with that, and we immediately got 2 really powerful access points, exterior access points, and we put them one on the plaza and one towards the parking lot so people could have some shelter while they were using the internet or helping their kids with their homework or whatever it was, because our internet was reliable. As I said, it's not the case throughout the city of Newburgh. So it was that ability to not only listen to the community, find out what the problems are, but addressing them immediately and adequately, so that our families continue to be served. The adults who are looking for work can continue to look for work on the devices that they have using our internet. So Libraries are changing and libraries are transforming with the digital age, with all the challenges that we're all going through. And we're excited to partner with Open Hub to make all of this happen and raise the bar and get to that next level and really be excellent providers of not only access, technological access, digital access, but workforce development in our library space.
Thank you. It's great to work with a librarian who knows what an access point is. And the last person on our, well, not the last person, because we still have an empty chair that I want to introduce. But Mary Jane Bertram is with the Workforce Development Institute. She's the regional director for the Hudson Valley and a sponsor of this event. So we doubly thank her for both speaking and sponsoring. Why don't you tell us what the Workforce Development is and describe your work rather than.
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be with these other speakers and learn more about their programs and their projects, because addressing the digital divide there's not a one answer fits all. It's going to take a lot of collaboration between all of us to provide these opportunities and these services to our communities. So thank you for having me here. The Workforce Development Institute is a statewide nonprofit. And I'm the Hudson Valley Regional Director, but there's one of me in every region across the state. And we're tasked with expanding, promoting, and retaining the workforce in New York State. We do that in a lot of different ways. One of the ways we do it is through collaborations and through our grant program. And a couple of the examples on where our grant programs intersected with technology is I've helped some of the unionized building trades purchase upgraded computers for their labs, smart boards for their classrooms, and a project near and dear to my heart with Open Hub. They came to me with an idea, and it was transformative for the group that the idea was for. What Open Hub thought of doing was bringing their technology training to some of the children or the young adults in inner city Poughkeepsie that didn't have access. Not only they didn't have access to the training, they didn't have access to the hardware, and they didn't have access to the internet. So through a collaboration with Open Hub Workforce Development Institute, the Dutchess County Workforce Investment Board, and Dutchess County government, we were able to put together a project where the county donated computers. Open Hub, with all of their expertise, were able to take the students through refurbishing these computers. They had the towers and the desktops, and then they taught the young adults the basics in computer operations. So they fixed the computer, they learned the basics in operations and how to do an interview and how to write a resume. And then at the end of that training, they were able to take those computers home with them. Now, this was transformative to some of those young people. I have a picture of one young man actually hugging his monitor. He was so excited to be able to take that home. I think one of the other panelists mentioned that each individual in a home needed to have access, needed to have that device. Through projects such as the one done with Open Hub, we can help not only help refurbish and keep computers out of the landfills, but we can refurbish them and get them into the hands of the young people that need it. I saw something on social media, on Facebook, and it said, who here was born before Google was around? Well, not only was I born before Google, all of my adult kids were born before Google. So I don't know I can't tell you what technology is and what the future is. And I even had to look up the definition from Webster, what information technology was, to make sure it's like, do I even know what this is? Because it covers everything. It touches all of us every single day. And it's only going to be more so. We looked at, I was curious about what type of jobs in the Hudson Valley needed technology. I could not find a sector that didn't. But what I did note is in those job postings, and you have to, when you look at data, it's not Bible. It's because there's a lot of ways, you guys know better than I, how to package it, massage it. And not every job posting lists the salaries that they're offering. But there was one stat that I thought was significant. In entry-level jobs in the Hudson Valley over the last year, that did not list technology skills, starting pay was around 37,000. As we all know, that's not a living wage here. But if that job posting listed technology skills, everything from Microsoft on up, the entry wage was 56,000. That is a living wage. So at WDI, we're committed to the workforce today and the workforce of tomorrow, and collaborating with all of you. So how can we improve access and to not just the internet, but to the hardware, to the actual devices that's going to make the difference in individuals' lives.
Yeah, no, I
Thank you
think
so
that's a
much.
great point, yeah.
Can I jump in for a second? Because this is the amazing opportunity right now while Mary Jane is talking, and we have one of the graduates right here in the audience. And I would probably be happy not only to say hello, but actually maybe to have you on the stage sometimes today. Yes, just join this. You see empty
Come on
chair?
up.
Come on up.
I would love to hear about the training.
Yeah, yeah. He got a job right here. Our goal is just not to brag about what we've done, but just to bring more awareness about digital divide and opportunities right here. Okay.
Great man.
Would you like to say a couple words? What was your experience? What are you doing now? Let's put it this way.
Oh, sure.
Introduce yourself and just.
My name is Connor McCormack. I'm from Poughkeepsie, and I was one of the students
For this program?
for the program that she was just speaking about. It definitely helped me a lot in terms of knowing how to repair computers and encouraging me to make a proper resume and do a lot of things that I hadn't been doing before. Right now, I actually started up my own business, and I'm doing work on software development, and actually because of the program, I'm able to put "and computer repair" on my business card instead of just software development. So I'm doing that on the side, which I'm sure will give me a lot of supplementary income along with the software that I'm going to be developing.
Great to hear.
No, and I think that's a great point, because not only is it job training, but it creates opportunities for entrepreneurs. That people who want to just run their own business and take off on their own have the skills they need to get started. So more power to you.
Yes, great to have entrepreneur between us, and actually happy to help some kids with mental health challenges as well. Sometimes you can see these kids are so special and so talented, and they are not the way you expect or the school expect them to be. They require a little bit different attention, and look at these gems coming out of this. So that's what the goal is, to put them back to the impact loop and just plug them into the best of their capacity right now, right here, and to grow from there.
And you get an opportunity to get on stage when you didn't expect it.
Spotlight. Yay, thank you, Connor. And actually we have to welcome Angela. Now she is back.
We got Angela finally.
Okay, here's Angela.
Hey, hi, Angela.
Glad to see you in person, finally.
It's fabulous to see all of you. We use that amazing method of like shutting it down and bringing it back, and then everything worked. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm Angela Siefer. I'm the Executive Director of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. I live in Columbus, Ohio. This is my home. What you all are doing is just so fabulous. NDIA got started because we wanted to represent efforts that you all have just described. right now. That we knew 7 years ago when we started NDIA that there wasn't a national organization hearing what you were saying, hearing your challenges, hearing your successes and your expertise, and taking that to policymakers so that they could integrate that knowledge into their policymaking. And hopefully very soon, the news is telling us it could actually really happen, that if the infrastructure bill passes, there's $2.75 billion in a Digital Equity Act inside the infrastructure bill. So more money for this work that's been described today, for access to computers and the training and the home internet and the tech support, the digital navigation, all of it. I think what has shifted during the pandemic is that awareness. And then we have these stimulus funds. We have the Schmidt Futures funds in the state of New York that NDIA is managing. Those are, quick note, those are already, applications have been received. We're going to notify folks in December what the results are of that. But I think the changes in the possibility of this funding, federal funding, state funding, philanthropy funding, but with these is all down payments. And we all know the digital divide is not going to just be over when the pandemic, changes our lives the way it's changing our lives. And we know that this short infusion of cash isn't going to solve things, that we have to keep setting up new systems. I loved hearing Meg say that they have based their program on Tech Goes Home, because that is a long-standing program, right? Like everything you all are doing, this is the new reality. And so for the folks at the event who are now doing digital inclusion work and weren't doing digital inclusion work before, I welcome you to the digital equity community. It is really a community. Join us at digitalinclusion.org. It's free, because there's a lot of sharing that we have to do. We all have so much work to do that we have to learn from each other. And that's really what NDIA is a place to learn from each other. So I welcome everybody in and to continue learning from each other. So thank you for having me today.
A pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you. I have a question for the panel, which is, what role does English language play in all of this? And are there challenges in reaching out to Spanish populations? I know Mary Lou, you were telling me about one.
Yeah, well, that has been a huge challenge in the city of Newburgh, which is 52% Hispanic and Latino. It has been a challenge with the families that have come into the community. Most recently, we had 500 new families register in a week, just a couple of weeks ago, coming from other countries, undocumented, documented, but all in a similar situation of challenge with the technology that their kids are being given to use at home, and not being able to utilize that, and not having the training in Spanish so that they can help their children along. So that has been an ongoing focus of the Newburgh Free Library in terms of working with Open Hub and other initiatives to address that problem, because again, that just creates another digital divide. Just because you have the device doesn't mean everything is equal. If there's a language barrier, if there's an internet access barrier, those problems still persist. So that is a huge need in our community, and I imagine in communities across the country, making sure that computer training is done in all languages.
Do you find the similar situation?
I would love to add to that. So we just produced our first Korean flyer. Angela, you'd really like that. What I didn't kind of detail out in the way that we do our work, I think there's two things. There's language, and then there's the language of trust. And so there's a couple things I want to say there, which is the way that we implement our work is our nonprofit, the STEM Alliance, does not know everybody who's sitting in digital distress in Westchester County. And so the way that we do our work is through partnerships. Our partners do. They might be working with clients for mental health reasons. They might be working with clients for educational programs. They might be working with clients for a Head Start initiative. We work with programs that serve prison reentry and so forth. So there are a lot of nonprofit partners that we work with. They have a mission, but they realize that if they can't get their clients onto the rails of technology, their clients are always going to be marginalized, whether that's accessing telehealth or whether that's writing a job application. So there's two things that happen there when we do this work in partnership with libraries as well, is yes, our staff, I have 3 fully bilingual Spanish-speaking staff members. But that's not the only second language in our communities. So we have taught programs in Russian, and now we're working in Korean. And we, the STEM Alliance, can't speak all of those languages. And as a result, this is again where the partnership is so critical, whether it be leveraging volunteers through the partner organization or leveraging the partner staff. So part of our work is to train the trainer and elevate the technology education skills of the partners that we work with. The last piece, though, is this language of trust. And what we know about technology adoption is that it takes trust. It is very scary for a lot of people, and maybe even for you when you first open that computer, like, am I going to break it? That sensation. I don't know if you had that sensation.
I was afraid that I was going to break it because I knew how like important the computers were, and so I was like, oh no, what if I break something? I would
Exactly.
Ruin it.
And
I feel that way every
exactly.
time I open my computer.
Right. Well, and you have to imagine a parent, for example. A lot of people are like, oh, it's so great that the school's got loaner devices out. And it is. But loanership is different than ownership. And one-to-one ownership, that's equity. And so when we look at this issue of trust, what happens is if you don't own the device, then you won't take chances with it. Whether it's, or you won't change it so it speaks Korean instead of English. If it's my device, I can make that choice. So that's one of the big things that we're about. We do not want loanership programs to stop. We simply want one by one to make sure that everybody can own their own devices, take chances with it, enter programs through trusted relationships, be invited to learn, and most of all, take chances with their equipment. Because we heard it from Dennis, right? When he was talking about the Amazon thing, it was like, yeah, we had to screw up a lot before we got to that, right? Well, it's the exact same thing. And if people don't own their devices and they can't take trusted risk with it, then no matter the language, they're not going to learn.
I'd like to come at this question from a different angle. That from the WGI across the state, we have helped hundreds, possibly thousands of manufacturers address different workforce issues. And one of them is English as a second language. What we have found that's been effective is using technology to help the workforce learn English. And there are programs on a smartphone that employees can actually learn English on their time, anywhere they are, on a break room that's individualized, that they're using just their smartphone. Vassar Hospital has got, at least a couple of years ago, they had devices that they would use that would interpret for them. So in the ER, can you imagine, you're a nurse in the ER, you're a doctor in the ER, someone comes in speaking a language you do not speak and nobody on staff that evening speaks. Well, there's a device that can be used that translates in real time for them. So there's a lot of different things happening in this realm in utilizing technology to answer these problems that individuals are having.
I do want.
I have a question. I wanted to know, so, we're talking about hardware, putting hardware in people's hands. That's a great thing. Ownership versus ownership is a brilliant thing. And then, we're talking, Open Hub, we're about getting people to be able to program computers and work in a technical way. But there's a whole population that look at a computer and they go, I don't know, I was born before the Google age, right? I thought I got very too, right? I was born before that. How do I even get on the board? And there's this large population that struggle with even knowing about social media, knowing about basic programming, and that kind of thing. It'd be great if you talk to us.
We see that every day at the library. We always have to write both sides of that because there are a great deal of folks in our community that have never had access or have lost their position and they have to reapply for a job, and now there's no more paper applications, so they're sitting in front of a computer. They're already under stress because they've lost their job, and they're embarrassed and they feel like they've been left out. And that's been our job as library staff, to sit side by side and really guide people through these applications and be able to help them get past that hump, because I think it's really important, as you say, to not forget the non-digital in our world, because there's a huge population that is not there and they don't understand social media, or they get some device for a gift and they have no idea how to use it. And there's a lot that don't want to, you know, so, but they have to in order to fill out legal documents or apply for jobs. So that's something that the library takes very seriously, and being able to provide that one-on-one assistance.
And likewise, our program really is an on-ramp, like we would be before Open Hub, if you will, in terms of the amazing work that the Open Hub team is doing. Our program is based predominantly on teaching the Google platform, but we do have to literally step back and start with turning the computer on, setting Wi-Fi, rejecting Wi-Fi's. A lot of what happens too is the inability to shut out the kind of lower level Wi-Fi's if they can't get to the right Wi-Fi, changing Google Chrome identities. And so a lot of what happened in the beginning of the pandemic is that kids were getting marked as absent because they only had one device in the home and they were logged in as an identity. And then they were going to class in their sister or their brother's identity. And so these were the types of kind of core skills that a lot of us take for granted. I think one of our primary kind of slogans is a computer is a tool, not a teacher. And there are large portions of the population who have never actually been taught how to use a computer. And again, this goes into this notion of a digital native, which is, I really want everybody to put that myth away, and please don't use that vocabulary. There is no such idea of somebody who's a digital native who just kind of through osmosis learns it. We all benefit and are able to amp up our skills when we are taught directly how to use the tool. And especially if you live in an environment where nobody around you has a computer or has been using those skills. I think just by way of anecdote, because it's so important to look at stories like yours, Connor, and the other folks that we're able to serve. We had a client who took our on-ramp class, learned the basics of Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and Gmail. And she was a certified nursing assistant and had been in a particular office and had been sent out for, you know, I think she was there for about 6 or 7 years. And her employer saw something in her ability to manage multiple tasks and kind of inefficiency in her, and started bringing her into the office more. But she had been in the office for a year before she came to our program, and she had never touched a computer in the office. But she had all of that capacity. She had just never been taught how to use the tool. And just with this on-ramp, she was someone who then was immediately given a raise as soon as she got those basic skills to transfer her just intuitive knowledge around how to manage a multitude of information, send people on assignments, bookings, etc. She was already connecting the dots like a computer. She just didn't have the tool. So we absolutely need on-ramp programs. Our Digital Equity Now is absolutely working with pure beginners, but our goal is to take people on to workforce reskilling and then to become technologists, such as worked for Connor incredibly successfully.
Yeah, Angela, you have the national perspective on this issue. You've heard a lot about the Hudson Valley. Do you have anything to add for us?
Yeah, that because technology keeps changing, we will never stop learning, right? So I think Meg's point about the digital native, that's ridiculous. Actually, the problem we have with some digital natives is they don't know how to type because they're on this and they're not like this, right? If there's not a computer in their home. So the fact that technology keeps changing means that we will always need these digital literacy programs. It kind of breaks lots of folks' hearts when I say we'll never actually solve the digital divide. Unless we're going to be like, okay, technology, why don't you just stay where you are and don't do anything new? Then there's always going to be something new where there's going to be a group that gets left out unless we are intentional about making sure that everyone is engaged. And I've actually gotten to the point during the pandemic where I don't know that's a choice anymore. Like we used to be like, well, if they don't want to use it, then don't force them to use it. Did you want a vaccine shot when the vaccines first came out? You had to know how to use the internet, or you had to know somebody who was going to do it for you. You want to see what your Social Security benefits are? You can wait online for it. You can, still wait on the phone for a really long time, or you can get online and do it. So the choice has been taken away from us, and that probably really just kills lots of folks. But that's a reality for those of us who care about everyone, to make sure they are not excluded from the world that we live in.
And I think that's the issue, is you don't want people to be excluded. That's why we call it inclusion. I do want to make a mention of one person who could not be with us here today is Steve Amarante. Steve is the founder and one of the partners of a company called Sky Packets. They have a very innovative approach to providing Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi. We've been working with Steve very closely in Newburgh. We have contacted Rupco and a private building construction company that owns 85 properties in Newburgh about putting access points on their properties. And what Sky Packets will be able to then do is use those access points to overbuild a system for the big carriers and take the excess channel capacity and provide free outdoor public Wi-Fi for the entire city of Newburgh. That's the goal of our project. And I get so excited about working with Steve because you can give people all the computers you want. You can train them in all the programming if they want, that you want. If they can't get online, they're working with two hands tied behind their back. So, you know, that's a very exciting part of what we've been doing. We've been going through up and down the Hudson Valley trying to find the right situation to bring, because Sky Packets has been working nationally. They've done big build outs in a lot of other places. So, but it's a hard sell. It's not an easy thing to convince both the property owners, the municipalities, all the other stakeholders that this is really a good deal. So I wish Steve could be with us. He speaks Spanish. He's with his family in Dominican Republic right now and was unable to be here today. But I did want to mention the good work that he's been doing. Do any of you have any more questions for each other?
She mentioned something about, and really resonated with that technology is a lifelong learning commitment. Because I know with older friends that signing up for the vaccine, they had a very difficult time, even with access to the computers and that in just navigating. So inclusion is not just for young people. It's not just for individuals that don't have the economic ability. Inclusion is for people of all ages that may need to improve their skills, continual learning. I hate it every time my mail, Google Mail changes something. I hate it. I hate it when my iPhone updates because I have to learn something, but that's a commitment to the world we're living in now, is that you have to keep your skills, no matter whether you're actively employed, seeking employment, or retired. To navigate today's world, you have to have skills in technology.
We like to call that digital resilience.
Oh, I like that.
That's digital resilience.
I think it's important too for organizations to really keep a finger on the pulse, because just as you say, they may be using a device that no longer is suitable for what you're trying to do. We just had a whole registration for our school district, and everybody who came from other countries or who didn't speak English, they all had a phone, all knew how to use the phone. They didn't know how to use the computer. They didn't know how to use the mouse. They didn't know how to use a tablet. And that pivot was not made, so that was a learning experience. So the next go round, we are, definitely will have that digital friendly, that mobile friendly, registration form. It's just critical because that's where we're going. And so it's having to learn really quickly because things are changing so quickly. But if you want to accomplish something, you've got to be able to have the devices that are going to be suitable for that.
And I would just say one really quick closing comment is that we've actually expanded our work now and are developing another program called Telehealth Access for All. And it's a modification of our Digital Equity Now curriculum, where we work with clinics and hospitals to develop inside the 15 hours, a certain number of hours where we teach their telehealth portal. And effectively, if you look at the social determinants of health, really technology is the super social determinant, because all of the things that determine somebody's health outcomes, again, run on the rails of technology. And if we don't get folks connected, then they're going to be limited in health resources, telehealth opportunities, and more.
I just want to say that when I introduced this panel, I said they were rock stars. And I think you see why I say that now. Thank you very much.
I have a question. We didn't finish the panel yet. I have a question, and then we will have the Mentimeter another time. The question I want everyone to think about it. What is one thing you can do to address digital divide in your community, in your area, in your team, around you? What you can do, you personally can do in your smaller circle, larger circle, etc. We know all these superstars are here doing amazing groundwork right now, right there. But what can you do? In 5 minutes, we will pull Mentimeter up, but you have 5 minutes to think about it. And here's my question to you. I would start with Angela. What is one thing you would suggest us to do as a digital manifesto, creating what? Awareness, creating how we can make a difference. Let me put it this way. For today, what we can do, one thing today to change, to make a change.
I think the one thing I would ask people to do today is to talk to someone who doesn't know anything about digital inequities and just have a discussion, because just having that discussion not only informs that other person, it helps you think through how you talk about it and how to explain this issue to folks who are unfamiliar with it.
This is great role, actually. This is a big thing. And I shall point to Digital Navigators program NDIA is running. So actually creating this awareness is a big thing. Thank you, Angela. What's our panelists' perception on
Do you
that?
have anything to say?
I'll make
One
a
thing-
suggestion, because I'll just spitball something, is what I'm hearing and what I'm learning from the other panelists is there's a lot going on. And so that we need to increase our collaboration. So maybe a digital technology task force in the Hudson Valley too, so that we can increase our collaboration and also our impact by working together more closely.
Exactly. That's such a good point too. Valuable, very much.
Yeah, excellent point. And I think in addition to that, it's that awareness of what our communities are struggling with. And not always thinking that we have all the answers, but to ask people what their challenges are, what their concerns are, and trying to meet those. I think sometimes we put a lot of stuff out there, wonder why doesn't anybody respond to that? But I think keeping a finger on the pulse of the community, really talking to the users of this technology and the users who need the internet, and to say, is this helpful? What would be more helpful? What are your challenges? And designing around that.
And I would say I really kind of have two answers. One is you are somebody's trusted someone. And again, it takes trust to learn skills. So just on an individual level, you can be somebody's digital navigator on whatever challenge they're having. But then I would also say that in my trajectory and in learning from NDIA and other organizations, we really need to create an agenda with our, with our cities, our towns, our regions, and our states to understand that this is about economic opportunity. And we have to engage those two topics together. This work is not going to get the funding that it needs if it's not understood as economic opportunity for the individual as well as for our communities. And it is that. But if we don't say it and we don't call for it, then ultimately it's not going to get funded.
Wonderful point. Economic development, it's very impactful. And we will hear from Connor, but while we are talking, I want to point out we did some prep work and we put out there into the draft for digital manifesto as a Google Doc on the website. So it's available under the panel announcement in the schedule, so you can access this. And I do want to continue this work because all these brilliant ideas has to be part of this. We're just only starting this work. And so
It's called towards a data center culture in the Hudson
What
Valley.
do you recommend?
yes, let's hear
People
Connor.
do.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of the economic development part, I think something that's really important is to have some sort of centralized database that has specifically relevant information to what your objective is. Perhaps have sort of curation algorithm that would, if you input the specific problem or issue that you require data on, then it will come up with the exact sort of thing that you would require. And I believe some sort of tool like that would also bring to light issues that perhaps are less talked about. I think that would be a good idea.
Spoken like a true coder.
Technology for technology.
Thank you. This is all amazing impact. And it's all will be incorporated in the Google Doc we started.
Yeah, and there are hard copies on the table here if anybody wants to
Yes. Please.
go the paper route.
Let's start collaboration right there. Gerald, do you want to read it? I don't think it's needed to read.
No,
For time
I'm not going to read this.
better. But
It is a document in the works and it's being put out so that people can comment and we can perfect it and then distribute it and get people to sign on as a petition.
Did you want to provide a link to that document on
it
either
is-
the
it's
chat?
published. Patrick
Okay,
is
it's
there.
published. Okay.
Patrick is already
No,
there.
good enough.
Hey.
Where's the voice?
But we also have the Slack in the chat would be good.
It's on the conference website under this panel's description.
When you go to schedule, a conference schedule, and you hit this panel description, you will see the link right there. So that's all about interactivity. We're doing it right here, right? Isn't it cool? So saying that, it was amazing panel. Thank you so much for your impact. Please grab your paper.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Connor.
5 minutes before we begin the next session, what you have to do? Mentimeter, please, to the studio. Can we have Mentimeter? Here you go. Okay, here's our professional surveying guy, John. Meet our another cool facilitator at the back end. Thank you, John, so much. Thank you, John Sturman. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed. Right?
Thank you.
Everyone in the room, please pull your phones. Everyone on the Zoom, please use the Zoom link. John, I believe they need Zoom link to that. The link on Zoom chat. This would help. I saw New York was helping there too. So either who will put it there first will be highly appreciated. But go to menti.com and use the code. Another code for this voting. Let us see what is one thing you can do to address digital divide today. Thank you. And look at these. People are signing the manifesto right there, not reading. I don't know, maybe they did. So make sure you have your signature there too, okay? During the session. The next, I will announce what's going on next. So the next is really interesting exercise where all the day about innovation here. So the next exercise coming called Conversation Cafe. And it will be highly interactive in both media, on Zoom